Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you here at our webinar for Chatbot Analytics. I'm Alice, the Product Marketing Director at Dashbot, and we're so excited to have you here. I have Henry Hu here, the Director of Sales at Dashbot, to give us an intro to measuring chatbot success. Now, before we get started, I'd like to let you know that we'd love to hear from you. This is a live session, which means the Q&A is open for you. We have our product experts at your Q&A box there. So if there's anything that you'd like to ask, please drop it in the Q&A. And also, please be sure to add your just engagements into the chat because this is live. So we're welcoming all of your conversations in the chat, and we'll send you the recording and recap after the webinar so you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the session. So with that, before we jump in, I want to give a huge shout out to you for joining us here. Welcome to our webinar. We'd love to see you in the chat where everyone is from. If you could just drop it in the chat box, what city, maybe even country. Love to hear where you're from. We've got some Austin, Texas representation. Anyone else want to share where they're dialing in from? All right, well, we'd like to share a little bit about who we are. Henry, would you like to go ahead and share where you're from?
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. Again, my name is Henry. I'm currently the Director of Sales at Dashbot. I'm based out of the Bay Area, specifically San Francisco, California. And a little background about myself. I've been with Dashbot and working with conversational AI for the past 5 years. Always have been fascinated with technology, with AI. I was born and raised in the Silicon Valley. And so this feels like my roots. I'm very excited to get to share some foundational ideas and best practices around designing the best bots and really owning your conversational data. So again, excited to get to know everyone here today. Looking forward to your questions and look forward to the session.
I love it. Thanks so much for the intro, Henry. That's quite a long street that you shared with me over here in San Francisco. So a little bit about me. I actually moved from the Bay Area, what seems like it was just recent, but it's been about 2 years now. I'm currently in Austin, and it's so exciting to see all the tech and energy in the city. And for fun, I love to paddleboard. So that's a little picture of me. You can see me out paddleboarding on the lake here in Town Lake. And today, I'm super excited to learn more from Henry today because of all of his expertise around how to measure success for bots. And just a friendly reminder, we want to welcome your questions in the Q&A. If you would like to drop them there, we will keep an eye out and our experts will get to your questions. So let's jump right in. And welcome, Robert, from the UK. That is so cool that you're calling in from all the way over there. All right, so as we enter 2023, it's no surprise that chatbots have been more and more adopted by both organizations and customers, right? We live and breathe bots now. In fact, a quarter of organizations will consider it to be the main channel by 2027. So what that tells me is that it's important now more than ever to get it right. So we know that bots are important, right? That's a no-brainer, but it's very difficult. These are just a handful of questions that I hear from those of you who have built bots or just thinking about the journey of building bots. And these are the handful of questions that I hear. One, where are all the data sources and how do I keep track of everything, right? And two, how do I share progress of my bots with all of my team members who are involved, whether they are in a business team or a technical team? And also, how do I get more out of the bot experience to drive impact? No matter how long you've been thinking about chatbots, either it's your first bot project or something that you've deployed years ago, it seems like there are so many people who are challenged with this one question. How do you even know how your bot is performing? To bring some light into this question, I'd love to introduce you to Henry Hu will talk to us about his point of view on how to measure success with bots. Henry, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for the intro, Alice. And yeah, excited to get into this with everyone. So topic we're covering today is how to use data to set goals that are both actionable and effective. And I'll get into a little bit into more what that means later in this presentation. But I want to break this conversation out into two main parts. The first one, I want to introduce what that SMART framework means and how to utilize the SMART framework to build and set goals, and then from there define the right set of metrics to then measure the success of those goals. And then in part two, after we learn about the SMART framework, I want to go over an example use case with some sample data, show you how to collect and aggregate metrics into a single place, and then from there produce what we call data signals from those metrics to then allow you to then take action and influence change and positive change within your bot program. So that being said here, let's get right into it and jump into this next slide. I want to talk about this SMART framework. And what does SMART mean? SMART is essentially an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And this is just a great framework for starting to understand and define what are your initial goals, and then what are then the metrics that will help you measure and define those goals. So again, starting with specific here, just being very specific around the current goals for your bot. Take into consideration the use case you have deployed for the bot, as well as the maturity of the bot, right? So there are different goals for a bot that just got deployed versus a bot that has been a lot more matured and has been deployed for a long time. Second is measurable. So defining the right metrics that can help you measure the success of that goal. And this often ends up being a blend of different metrics rather than a single metric that can tell that story. Then is achievable, right? So if you have a blend of different metrics that help you tell this story, are these different metrics coming from different data sources? And are you able to obtain and consolidate or aggregate those different data sources to produce signals to take action? And is that available for you to do at scale? Now is relevant. Next is relevant, which is making sure that your metrics and the goals you've set are really tying back to that overall big picture. Why did your business really even invest in the bot in the first place? What is that core challenge or that core goal that you're looking to resolve for? And does it make sense to focus on those particular metrics? And finally, it's time bound, right? So having a target date for or a deadline for those goals so that you can force yourself to work smarter rather than work harder, and making sure that you're focusing on the areas that create the biggest impact for your customers. And so if we jump over to the next slide here, let's unpack the SMART methodology a bit more and also provide you with a few examples. So again, starting at the top here, when we're talking about defining specific goals, I mentioned a few examples like considering your use case, but also the maturity of the bot. And an example here is, for new bots, you may be focused on things like adoption and engagement. Are people even noticing this new channel? Are they actually utilizing it in the right way? And are they actually adopting that new experience? But for mature bots that already have solved the problem of adoption, you might care more about retention. Are people returning? And CSAT, where people are satisfied and actually happy with that new experience over time. Second, for measurable, I talked about different data sources often pairing together to tell that full story. Examples of this could include data coming from your CRM, your NLP engine, your call center, or even your bot building platform. And so an example or story I like to talk about is, let's say you have a goal of call deflection, right? You have, let's say, long call center wait times, and you want to deflect as many calls to improve that part of the user experience. Well, in order to make that measurable, you would have to collect both metrics inside of the bot around adoption, as well as call center traffic reduction metrics to correlate those two and make sure that you could tell the story that your bot is actually deflecting more calls from your call center. Next is achievable, right? Especially if you are collecting data from various different sources. Are you actually spending more time manually exporting, cleaning, and cleaning that data? And do you even have the energy and the bandwidth to focus on optimizing based on the signals that you're producing? And if you are even able to manage a more of a manual process today, are you able to upkeep that current process if you 2x, 3x, or even 5x in volume? Especially as you deploy a successful chatbot program, the more your customers are going to trust that experience, they're going to adopt it, they're going to expect more out of it. Are you able to scale your current process today? Then finally, it's like relevant, right? We want to make sure you're not tunnel visioning on certain chatbot metrics and lose sight of your big picture goal. An easy example I like to use here is that escalation metric. It's very easy to tunnel in and focus on your escalation number, always trying to drive that number down, but never forget that there are use cases within your bot that should technically be escalated. An example of this would be, let's say, someone canceling their account through the chatbot. In that case, you actually want that user to escalate to a human right away so they can have a conversation and effectively prevent that churn from happening, versus more self-service use cases like a refund or order status. Those should have preventable escalations. And so in that case, there's an example of a bad escalation versus a good escalation is preventing that user churn. So instead of just tunnel visioning on that escalation metric as that general metric, take into account your certain context and don't forget how those metrics tie back to, again, that big picture goal that you may have. And then finally, as I mentioned with time bound, the idea is to work smarter, not harder. Don't focus on the individual transcripts or the individual tickets that won't really make an impact on your bot, right? Your chatbot is a new medium, is a new channel for you to get direct user feedback, and you should be using that data to your advantage, right? Let that data guide you to focus on your areas of highest impact so that you can hit all of your different goals within a certain time frame. And so now that we've covered the SMART methodology and we've given you a few examples to start thinking about your goals, in this next visual, let's jump to this next slide. We want to talk about our approach at Dashbot on how we think about setting goals, then defining the themes and how to measure the success of that goal, and then finally selecting the metrics that we use to measure each and every individual theme. And the visual I like to use here is this pyramid. So again, starting at the tip top, we're starting with what that overall business goal is. Again, why did you deploy the bot? What business challenge or business goal are you looking to achieve? From there, breaking it out into different themes. What are the most important themes for measuring the success of that goal? And then finally, the metrics that are both inside the bot, so the bot and conversational related metrics, as well as the metrics outside of the bot that can help tie that story together for each particular theme. So as an example, I want to give an example use case here. Let's say our business goal is that we want to improve the digital customer experience by implementing a chatbot as a new support channel. Maybe my call center is getting flooded right now. There's a long wait time in order to get in front of a live agent. And so I want to stand up a chatbot for my business to help lower those wait times and provide this brand new experience and channels for my customers to then get their questions resolved. So what are my themes, right? Initially, because this is a brand new bot, my 3 core main themes may be adoption. Are the users actually engaging and are they returning to the bot? Second is goal attainment. Are users actually able to self-serve? Can they get their questions answered? Can they find resolution within the bot itself? Or are they having to drop off and having to call back into the call center anyway, causing an even worse and roundabout experience? And finally, are they actually satisfied? Are they happy? Do they even prefer this new channel and this new experience? And as we move into this bottom row here, we begin to define what are the actual metrics that we use to measure the success of each of these themes. For example, for adoption, we might be looking at users, your engagement, the retention metrics. For goal attainment, we may be focused on the escalation and containment rate. What is a flow completion rate or the conversion rate, and even looking at NLP confidence. And then finally, for satisfaction, we can focus on the CSAT and NPS scores, as well as overall user sentiment. And so this is a very quick example of our pyramid framework or pyramid visual and as an exercise to help you think about setting your goals, then your themes, and then defining the right metrics to measure each theme. So now that you have an idea of the SMART framework and then this pyramid visual, I want to turn this question back to you and those of you in the chat. We're going to do a quick poll here, and I'm curious to get everyone's answers on which of these themes are actually most important for your particular bot program. And we'll go ahead and kick off the poll here and would love to see everyone's answers.
Hi, Eric. Can you launch the polls for me, please? I think we're having a bit of a Zoom technical difficulty, but I'd love to hear in the chat what you all think. If you can indulge me, the poll question is, which of these themes are important for your bot program? And listen to them all, because you may be thinking they're all really important, but I love to hear. Engagement metrics is A. B is conversion or task success. C is customer satisfaction. D is escalation or agent handover. And E is deflection or containment. I know that they're all important, but would love to hear what y'all think in the chat. All right, I see A and C, engagement metrics, as well as escalation and agent handover. Thank you, Lindsay, for adding in the choices there. I see escalation is a big one, right? Right, Henry, we definitely want to make sure that we're seeing where it's being escalated in that journey. Yep, customer satisfaction.
Escalation, satisfaction, all valid, all great themes.
Thank you so much for participating. And with that, we'll hand it off to the next section.
Awesome. Yeah, so now that we have the themes defined and as well as the metrics for each theme defined, the next task now is to begin aggregating and consolidating all those metrics, ideally into a single place, and to begin producing and surfacing what we call signals. And I'll get into a second here, what is the difference between metrics versus signals, but let's go to this next slide here. I want to give you an example of how we produce these metrics and this data inside the Dashbot platform as an example. But regardless of whatever your process is today, the idea is to be able to pull in all those different metrics you have set in that previous exercise into a single place, ideally in an automated way as well, so you can focus on actually optimizing your bot rather than transforming or cleaning your data each day. And so what we provide here at Dashbot, right, is we are able to consolidate all of the integrations for every single bot deployment that you have across the business. So if you have chatbots deployed for different use cases, different channels across different LOBs, the idea is to integrate with all of those solutions and bring all of that different levels of conversational data into what we call our centralized and saleable data hub. So what you see here is an example dashboard of one of our current sample bots. And as you can see on the top row, these are a collection of different KPIs or metrics that are linked back to those original themes that I have previously discussed. So starting on the left side with new users, that helps me answer my theme of adoption. Fallback messages and intent confidence help me understand goal attainment. And then the average sentiment score helps me understand user satisfaction. So what do I mean by metrics versus signals? Well, metrics here are essentially like the raw numbers. How many users, how many fallback messages, what is my average intent confidence or sentiment score? Now, a metric alone doesn't really provide enough context for you to be able to take action on your data and understand where you need to prioritize your efforts to create the biggest levels of impact. Now, what a signal is when you take a metric and you start to apply different contexts to that metric, such as what was that fallback rate and what was that change over time and a comparison to the previous week. Also, if we were to look at these two middle charts here, what is that trend of users or fallback messages over time to see if there's a specific date or a key event that has triggered that message volume to spike. And once you have produced a signal, let's say as an example, the fallback messages has spiked over the past week, and you identify maybe there's a certain day and a key event that caused that to spike. We are now able to dig into the exact fallback messages, as you see in the bottom left here, where you can see if there are new emerging topics or new emerging utterances that have led and contributed to the number of fallback or failed responses from the bot. So again, starting with the metrics, utilizing the metrics and applying different contexts, ideally, such as changes over time or applying and noticing certain key events that have taken place that influenced a spike, and then using that to produce what we call the signal. And the signal is what will effectively allow you to take action on your data and allow you to prioritize again which areas in the bot can lead you to the highest levels of positive impact. And in this next example here, if we skip over, I want to actually give another particular example around escalation, right? Escalation seems to be a very common theme with a lot of different bot programs and companies. And so on this top dashboard view here, we are looking at that raw number of escalated users. We're able to see that it has gone up 2.6% over the past week. But we also want to consider, even if it did go up in raw numbers, right? Did it go up in the ratio in this pie chart showcasing of the ratio of escalated to non-escalated users, and then looking at the trend on the right side over time to see if there's a particular day where those more of those escalations have taken place. Like now that I've seen and gotten a few different contexts around escalation, and I know I need to prioritize it for this week, we could then begin to look at the bottom few cards here, where we can start to identify what are the main journeys and intent paths that resulted in an escalation. And on the bottom left side here, this is an example of different user flows as well as root causes and the initial intents or use cases that resulted in an escalation. So understanding which of these use cases should have been avoidable for an escalation, understanding how many users were impacted by starting that use case and ending up in escalation, and even getting down to the granular level of reading and reviewing the transcripts for those particular conversations to finally understand what exactly went wrong and then execute on the right changes to avoid those escalations from taking place in the future. And so now that we again covered examples on defining metrics, setting those themes, we've taken a look at least the Dashbot method of consolidating metrics, what are metrics, and then producing signals. We'll open this up back up to the group again. And if the poll is up, we can shoot it up. If not, hopefully we can put up the questions and the answers within the chat. Oh, it looks like we do have it up here. But I'm curious to hear from the group today, where are you getting your metrics and your analytics today, right? And I understand there's a lot of different levels of maturity, right? You may be just getting started, or you may be very mature with a great program and lots of tooling. So I'm very curious, like, are you using things out of the box from your provider? Are you building things custom through a BI tool like Tableau, Power BI? Or are you just deployed, right? And you're just getting started and you're exporting data and you're throwing it into an Excel, and that's totally manageable for now. So curious to get everyone's thoughts, and we can close out this poll in just a minute or two. Awesome. Looks like the majority is getting analytics out of the box, either from the bot vendor or through a BI tool. So I would say as food for thought going forward, It's something to consider is like, are you happy and are you getting all the right metrics currently right out of the box from your vendors? And depending on what ideas or what other challenges that have emerged or ideas that have emerged from this webinar, we are happy to have a conversation with you to figure out what is the best strategy going forward to deliver you the right metrics to answer those themes and your overall business goal. And so that being said here, thank you for participating in the poll. In this next section, we want to cover what is the data first approach here at Dashbot. And I'm going to hand this back over to Alice to talk about this topic.
Thank you so much, Henry. This is just amazing to see how we could bring to life the business goals mapped to how to measure the bot success, right? So earlier, Henry showed us that pyramid visual so that we could set the goals with the business priorities, think about the themes attached to them, and then how to measure that with the KPIs. We also saw how it can be tracked on that one dashboard, right? Completely customizable. And now let's talk about Dashbot's data-first approach. This data-first approach that you see here is what you see on the right side of these blocks. It's setting up the foundation for your path to growth. No matter where you are in your journey, as Henry mentioned, it's really important that you start to look at your data as a foundation. So Henry, you mentioned connecting all of your data sources into Dashbot. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that exactly means, connecting all of the data to Dashbot?
Yeah, of course. So as I mentioned earlier, the measurable component of the framework means it's often a blend of different metrics that can help you answer or tell the story for just a single theme. And chances are you're going to need a lot of different metrics to measure all of the themes you've defined for your bot program. That being said, those metrics can come from various different sources. And so being able to automate and also consolidate all of those data points and metrics from those different sources into a single platform lends to be very powerful, especially as you have different bot deployments and especially as you scale into higher volumes. It'll save you lots of time and it'll produce more of what we call, again, signals that allow you to take action on your data.
Gotcha. So you get all of your data into Dashbot, you discover your signals. And now tell me a little bit more about this green line here about once you have your data into Dashbot, what does this auto organization mean?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine like if you just started with your very first bot project, if you're getting maybe 100 messages, 1,000 messages per week or per month, it's maybe manageable to manually read through every single transcript or, produce your results inside of an Excel sheet and get everything you need. But let's say your bot program takes off, and in a lot of cases for, let's say, enterprise grade companies or customers, you're going to be getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of messages, especially during peak season. And that level of data isn't really manageable from a human standpoint. That's where we look to leverage on technology to help you organize and structure that unstructured data through the power of machine learning. And so in future topics of webinars, we'd love to get into more detail around the machine learning applications that we leverage here at Dashbot. But just think of the idea as being able to take your unstructured data and produce those same metrics and signals now, but now at scale.
Great. So optimizing all of the automation pieces that you're thinking about now. So we have this single view of your data to discover the signals. And that's what we're here to share with you today, right? All of that you see here in the line in the white, personalized bot training data, insights about your customers and employee preferences, maybe even product feedback, buyer journey, and even your top customer service topics. All of that are the different ways to be able to be discovered by the signals that you currently own through your data. So we're so excited to share more about this data first approach. And we just want to let you know that no matter where you are in your journey, we'd love to hear about what your bot projects are and how we can help you take it to the next level. And the next section here is Q&A, but it looks like we are at time. So we'd love to take your questions. If you could just drop them in the chat, we'll make sure we get back to you. Otherwise, we'd love to get your opinion around today's session. Eric, if you could launch the poll one more time, we'd love to hear from you about what you'd like to hear from us. We want to learn with you together. So if you could take a few seconds to let us know what you're most interested in, we'll make sure that we create this lovely experience for you again. Just a few more seconds. All right, let's see what everyone wants to see. All right.
All right.
NLP. Wow. That's going to be a really exciting one, right, Henry?
I think everyone's excited when they hear machine learning and applications there, but I'm just as excited. NLP and NLU is one of my favorite topics, and I look forward to exploring that with all of you.
Let's do it. Yeah. Thank you so much for your feedback, everyone. I really hope you all enjoyed your time. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Dashbot team. If you have any questions or would like to chat with one of us, please reach out. Henry is going to drop his email. There it is, henry@dashbot.io. So we'd love to hear from you, to hear about what your journey's been. And we'll send the recording out to you. And until next time, have a great Wednesday. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.